Hi and welcome. It is a real privilege to have Leizl on the podcast. Leizl is from Rewire Therapy, and we were a group of two neurodivergent counsellors, chatting about mindfulness and ADHD. And it's just really nice to have you on today, Leizl.
Thank you. I'm loving being here.
Absolutely. So I guess we got chatting about mindfulness after Nikki from the Nikki Wellbeing came on the channel a month or so back, and she was talking about mindfulness for sleep, which was interesting. She was talking about how mindfulness isn't just about getting to sleep or relaxing, and I guess in my experience, mindfulness was a great way of calming myself when I've been stressed at work or panicked. But I was really interested meeting yourself. We chatted a bit a month ago, but meeting yourself and talking about mindfulness and it being useful for ADHD.
Yeah, it really is. And sleep and calm, we all need that, right?
Absolutely.
It doesn't discriminate. We all need to be able to sleep, and we all need to be able to find ways of being calm. But mindfulness, it gives us so much more than that. And unless we make it accessible to everyone, vast numbers of people will be excluded from a thing that's very, very useful to them. And so that's why I got into the whole trying to make mindfulness accessible to ADHDers. I'm not bringing anything new to the table. I'm genuinely just bringing a tradition that's thousands of years old. However, what I am bringing is recognizing what ADHDers need in order to be able to engage with the thing, to be able to get the benefit that is definitely sitting there waiting to have.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that about trying to make it more accessible. I've met a few folks actually who have said that very thing. Have said that meditation, closing their eyes in the silence, doesn't really work for them. And even myself, I guess. I can run and meditate that way, but meditation can be difficult. And you talking about accessibility for ADHDers. I guess I'm kind of wondering what mindfulness is, because I think meditation, but it's more than just that. And maybe you could say that, what mindfulness is, and particularly your journey with it.
Sure. Okay. So first of all, there's loads of different definitions of mindfulness, but they all sort of come down to the same thing. Mindfulness is about recognizing what's going on in the moment, at the moment, intentionally and without judgment. So, for example, oh, I've got pain in my knee. That's a fact. I've noticed it. I haven't said, and I wish it isn't there, or pain is there again, or how long is this pain going to stay? I've just noticed the pain in my knee and noticed that it's there. That's it. I've not added any meaning to it. I've not taken action. I've just allowed it to be there. Now, whether that's a physical pain or a thought or an emotion that is difficult, most of the time when we don't engage with that thought, we allow it to be there. We don't fight with it. Or we don't run away from it. It will go away again. Now, obviously, there are obvious circumstances such as chronic pain, in which case it will not go away. But there are ways of interacting with these things and events in our lives that don't make it worse. And a lot of the time, we, especially as ADHDers, are spending a lot of time and energy making it worse.
The way you describe it, like noticing what's going on for us, it sounds so simple, and yet at the same time, it's so bloody difficult to just be present with stuff without trying to push it away. And you say a lot of the time we're making it worse by having those judgments we have on it.
There's good reason for it. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yes.
That's why it takes practice, right? That's why we really, really need to stick at it. There are so many things I'm saying right now that I know ADHDers are going, oh, stick at it.
Yeah.
How many times have I been told I need to stick at it and then I'd get better at this and that? Well, okay. Let's be clear. For ADHDers, sticking at it does not necessarily look like 7 days a week at the same time every time, as it might do for other people. For a neurodivergent person, especially an ADHDer, keeping to a routine is really blinking hard.
Yeah.
So what if we make ourselves a promise that this week I would like to do it as often as I can. And actually, I'd like to do it more than 3 times if I can. 3 times is my minimum. That way, we've done it 3 times more than we did the week before. And then we can see next week what can I learn from those 3 times? When was it easiest? What made it easier for me to be able to be in the moment? And also, the sitting still bit is only part of it. It's not all there is. For ADHDers, a lot of ADHDers, sitting still is not a thing, right? And so why do we have to? We can combine movement. All right, so we might not be in a place to be able to go running. Not everyone can do that. But you could possibly stand if you can stand. And maybe as you're breathing in, you can sway to the left. And as you're breathing out, you can sway to the right. Nobody's stopping you. Or you could make a movement, right? So a colleague I've worked with, Christoph Spiessens, who also runs the Manchester Mindfulness Festival, used this in a session the other day. I loved it. When you breathe in, you flex your toes up. And when you breathe out, you relax them. Now, when you're doing that, and I was doing that as I was saying it to you, I don't know if you can see the movement.
I'm literally smiling at the same thought, curling my own toes. The wonderful thing about Zoom, no one can see us with our toes.
No one can see us curling our toes. But what's lovely about it is we're involving our whole being, because it's not just this kind of esoteric sit down and notice your thoughts thing. And also, it's not about clearing our minds. Never is it about clearing your mind. We can't. It's not possible. Most people on average have 80,000 thoughts in a day. So what are you going to do with them when you're clearing your mind?
You use the word esoteric, and I feel that. I had some therapy a while ago and was doing some mindfulness as part of it. And just that, when it feels like a demand, we have to do this, and this is how it looks. You have to sit in an uncomfortable position and focus on your breathing. And if a thought comes along, God, you're a bad person, you're no good at this, then it just shuts us down. But having that, it sounds really self-compassionate, just the way you talk. Well, just try 3 sessions a week. See if you enjoy it. If it doesn't work, then come back and let's talk about it. What worked and what didn't work. And it doesn't have to be sat in the uncomfortable position. It can be rocking back and forth or standing. It sounds almost fun rather than this like high monk thing that has to be difficult.
Yeah, it really can be fun. It really doesn't have to be boring. I mean, we have to breathe to be alive, right? Yes. But we don't have to suffer with it. If we can use our breathing to help us in everyday situations and make it fun at the same time, why would we not? Why would we not work with what works for us instead of working against what's difficult, right? We live, as ADHDers and other neurodivergent neurotypes, live in a world that doesn't make space for what we need. We have the power to do that for ourselves. And if we're going to do that on the regular, then it's going to make a difference to us. If it makes a difference to us, the way we interact with the rest of the world changes, which means we're changing the world.
I feel impacted by that. No, genuinely. Like, mindfulness is a little microcosm. Sod any preconceived ideas that it has to look like this or look like that. Make it yours and then take that out into the wider world. Yeah.
It's a little act of rebellion, being kind to ourselves, right? It's the world doesn't want you to be kind to yourself. The world wants you to consume more. You need to consume more because you're not good enough, and the advertising is going to help you in that direction. Because is your body summer ready? Every year. Because I don't look at advertising if I can help it. Are you achieving well enough at work? Yeah, I'm my own boss. I'm literally the embodiment of this rebellion, because if we keep doing what the world expects from us, if we keep doing what other people say is right, and we're never going to learn what's right for us and lean into the things that nourish us, lean into the things that fill up our batteries. And if the things that are supposed to fill up our batteries are painful and hard and torturous, then what hope is there for actually resourcing ourselves against all this stuff we've got to deal with every day?
Beautiful. I introduced this saying, I'd done mindfulness in the past because I've experienced work-based panic and wanted it gone. I see other people saying, my mind is so busy, I wish I had some focus, like maybe I should try some mindfulness, but it's not working for me. And this feels revolutionary. Actually, it's just about having fun and finding a space where you can be and extend that into other aspects of your life.
Yeah. Do you know what success is in mindfulness practice?
Right.
Practicing. That's your success. It's not a result. It's not feeling blissed out. It's not feeling having reached nirvana or enlightenment. It's having practiced. It's giving yourself the time and the commitment to do it. It's really making yourself the priority for however long your practice is.
And even that, it's not a demand, a thing you have to do. It's
a gift.
It's practicing. It's giving yourself. It's a gift.
Do you know, the trouble is that for a lot of people, when a lot of people are introduced to mindfulness, what happens is someone else says, oh, you really should do that. And then we go, okay, I should I? And that sounds like a demand, doesn't it?
The toes dig right the way in there.
Yes.
Oh, I should do this. I'll either do it begrudgingly or I darn well won't do it.
Yes. And if you're getting told you should do this because it'll benefit you, then it's your fault that you're suffering.
And more victim blaming.
Yes.
On top of the self-blame that comes so easily, especially when you're neurodiverse.
Oh, we've got stacks of that going on anyway. We don't need other people helping us. So I'm aware of that. And therefore, when I'm teaching mindfulness, I want people who have decided to be at the class, I've not made them be there, to find ways, their own ways of making this accessible for themselves. I can give them pointers. I can go, look, I know lots of neurodivergent people. And for this category of person, and remember, we're all different, right? So a category is still got a lot of maneuver in it. For this category of person, this kind of thing might be a thing to try. Notice how I'm saying might. I'm not saying you must try this and then it will make this better, because it might not. We're experimenting, we're learning, we're trying to get to know ourselves through mindfulness. This whole idea of noticing what's going on in the moment teaches us stuff every day. We're becoming our own observer. We're becoming our own kind of scientist, right? We're going in, checking in with the feelings, the sensations, and the thoughts, and seeing what there is. And the next time we do that, it's automatic to remember what it was last time and then compare and contrast, which obviously is thinking. But that's all right. We're allowed to see the difference and then go, all right, I see that thought. I don't have to engage with it anymore. I can let that be. The thought will come again because most thoughts are recurring. And so we don't have to bother holding on to them. If it's important, it will come again. And if it doesn't come again, well, what's happened? Did the world end? No. The number of things we've forgotten in our lives, and we're still here. So the idea is to be able to get these kind of data points regularly so that we can see trends. We can see on a day when I was feeling anxious or sad or whatever, I can go, okay, now that I'm not in meditation, I can start sort of recognizing patterns. I can go, right, on the day I was sad or stressed or whatever, what happened just before I was sad or stressed? Then I can recognize what happened before that, and I can start working out what about that made me sad or stressed. So I can learn about myself, but I can't do that if I don't stop and pay attention to me.
You said something earlier on, something like our attitudes, our judgments on things that come up for us, our thoughts, our feelings, our worries, can actually make it worse. And when you describe that kind of extension from practice, mindfulness, body movements, the extension from that to notice those things, notice when the thoughts come up, and almost like there was a reflectiveness, but that's different to worry. There's a real distinction in between that, oh, I'm feeling that, I'm a terrible person, this is wrong, I need to change it, to, oh, I felt like this today, what was going on for me?
Difference is distance, right? And the way I introduce that idea to clients and to course participants is by saying, we could imagine ourselves putting on white lab coats at this point and putting on some safety goggles, perhaps some, hairnets. Depends on whether you think you look nice in a hairnet.
just picturing it now.
Exactly. And when we're going to go into noticing all this stuff about ourselves, obviously this comes with a bit of practice, right? You don't do this on stage one. Once we start getting used to the idea of observing ourselves like scientists, when a scientist observes an experiment, they don't go, oh, and that's awful. They go, that's what happened. Data, write it down. And the next time they observe, they go, data, write it down. Now do comparison. This then, and then this then. They don't have themselves a big old meltdown about it. That way, then they can make conclusions at the end of the observations and so on. For us, it's the same thing. The Buddhists say the seeing is the doing. Well, if you ain't stopping to look, you're not going to notice any patterns and you can't do anything about it. So the point is for us to recognize what's going on in the moment without judgment. And we don't even have to do this consciously. It will settle in your head. And then we will start seeing patterns, and then we will start making decisions based on our own needs and well-being.
Because even you saying you don't have to do it consciously, when you're first describing the sense of being a scientist, it was a beautiful analogy. My mind went back to like studying. You're just saying you don't even have to do it consciously. You're just having that distance. You're observing, and then you can be a scientist looking at them. It's not that you have to write a paper. It's not a labor-intensive thing. It's not that I'm going to give you a whole load of homework. I'm going to make suggestions, and it's going to be gentle.
Everybody's journey is different with mindfulness, right? Mine, and here I'm coming back to your original question. Mine started off as I was in a corporate job in Edinburgh, and it was pretty high pressure. I was working stupid hours, like leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning and not getting back until after 7 o'clock at night. And I had a small child in the house at the time.
Time to be in the present moment.
Barely any time to be with them in the present moment, right? There was some time to be with me in the present moment, but not necessarily liking it very much.
Yes.
And I recognized that my mind was getting busier and busier and busier. At this time, I didn't know I was an ADHDer. But I did recognize that whenever I went to yoga, that Savasana bit at the end, when you're lying still and relaxed after having done all the movement, and now it's all about lying still and just allowing the sound of whatever's going on to come to you. I found a bit of space in my head doing that bit, and I wanted more. So I said to the instructor, I've heard of mindfulness. I suspect it has something to do with what we do at the end of yoga. What can you tell me? And she happened to say, well, there's a local guy just started a course. I mean, the luck of it was unbelievable. And I went to this full of A, trepidation, and B, distrust. I have to say, I sat there looking at the guy going, like mentally going, come on then, bring it on. Bring me peace. And by the way, do it in a way that I can believe, because I'm going to trust science. I'm not going to trust mumbo jumbo.
I love this already. I can imagine that very similar to the experience of some people watching this, the trepidation, distrust, particularly when we've been busy. We've had a glimpse of it with for yoga, but is this going to work? Is it not going to work? Show me.
Yeah. Well, for me to settle into it, the first couple of sessions were hard. In the format that he was doing it, and lots of people do this, you do a body scan in your second session, I think it is. And for me, that was excruciating, because you're supposed to be lying down. Now, of course, there are other ways of doing body scans. You might sit as well, but or stand if you wish. But it was sort of suggested that the standard way of doing a body scan was lying down. Here I am lying down with a bunch of strangers on a floor. This is a body that doesn't do much movement apart from sitting on a train, driving a car, or sitting on a chair, right? And so there was lots of aches and pains and discomfort as I'm even just trying to get myself in the posture. And then there's discussion about putting your attention on different parts of your body. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but I'm an ADHDer, so I had done major loops around the sun in my thoughts by the time I got back to the next body part and going, where are we now? It was not relaxing. I was irritated. At the end of it, I was like, I am glad that's over. I think had I known had I known at the time I was an ADHDer, I think I would have been able to give myself a bit more comfort. Would have been able to talk to myself in a kinder way in my head, going, well, yeah, all right, well, this is going to be trickier for you to lie still. So had I been an ADHDer, I would have been able to give myself permission to not do it as long, early stage of my practice as we did it on that occasion. There's no way my attention span would last as long as someone else's.
You say this is one of the early sessions. You said maybe the second you're laying there for what, half hour looking at different parts of your body. The mind's wondered, are we on the toe? Are we on the heel? I don't know. You stuck at it?
Tenacious.
I see.
Always have been. And
I'm glad for your willpower, just for what you brought about from it. But
when I've decided a thing is happening, then there's nothing else happening. But it doesn't always work like that, unfortunately. So it's something I needed for me. And thankfully, when that happens, I'm able to stick at it. If I need it for me and I've decided I'm doing nothing else and no one else will dissuade me from this, then it's going to happen. But that's hyper-focus. It's because I am now determined that a direction is going to be followed. It doesn't always work like that, right? If it's not become your hyper-focus, then it's going to be very easy for you to be distracted and then feel sorry for yourself because it didn't work out the way you wanted it. I'm not suggesting that if people still feel uncomfortable in session 2 or 3 that they're failing. What I'm saying is, for me, even though it was a struggle throughout the whole first course, I did that course maybe 3 or 4 times before it actually stuck. I want people to know that if you're attending a course that is not for ADHDers, there will be things in there that make it harder for you than if you are with a group of people with similar needs to yourself. And if you're with an instructor who understands those needs and caters for them and gives you the safe space to say, that was not what I wanted. That was really uncomfortable, or that was way longer than I could cope. Because when somebody says that to me, I don't go, just stick at it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, or make them feel as though they're doing it wrong somehow.
Yeah, if you just practice a bit more at home, then it'll be easier. That's one you can often hear from mindfulness instructors. Just you practice a bit more and you'll be fine. So what I would do in a situation like that, if I had had myself in my class, in the first place, I would have made a much bigger song and dance about you choose whatever is going to be the most sustainable position for your body to do this in. The tradition is to do this lying down, but you don't have to. We also have to be aware that there's a heck of an overlap between trauma and neurodivergent people. Some neurodivergent people have experienced trauma specifically to do with their bodies. And therefore, if we're doing a practice like this, we need to give permission to not. Now, for me, in the class I was in, I did get that permission, that safeguarding was in place. But people need to be very aware of that risk of trauma being flared up by somebody having to pay attention to a part of their body that is really uncomfortable for them to pay attention to. Especially, let's, for example, say it's a bit that hurts, right? You know it's going to hurt when you get that bit. It hurts all the time. So paying attention to it feels like it's going to make it worse. But actually, what's going to make it worse is your attitude to the fact that it hurts. You're going to know that in the early stages of a practice like this. And you're just going to go, why are you torturing me?
Are you torturing me and making me feel like I should be okay with this? Or,
yes.
or it should be all right when it really doesn't feel okay? Like you
yes.
say, trauma, pain, calling out. Mindfulness, I'm aware, became really popular 2000s or so. Like, it will definitely help you out, but just saying that, like, actually adapt it for people. Recognize that some folks, it might be flaring up if we've got traumas.
Yeah, there's a good period of time when trauma-informed mindfulness was all the rage. People needed to know about trauma, right? So that's helpful.
Yes.
Because it helps us understand that when people have had a tough time of something, then mindfulness, paying attention to that tough thing, might make it feel as though it's worse, even though it's really just that they're looking at it for maybe the first time. People don't necessarily come to mindfulness having been to therapy first. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes people come to mindfulness and recognize there's some stuff they would like to explore now that they can see it, and then take that to therapy. Or sometimes people have had their whole journey with therapy and they come to mindfulness and go, okay, now this is the next bit.
You're both a therapist as well as so you blend all of those things together, of both being able to hold a therapeutic space and understand what supporting someone to navigate those difficulties might be like, as well as being able to allow people to find mindfulness that works for them.
I have to say that I wear specifically different hats in different circumstances, right? So metaphorical hats, obviously. Not everyone thinks the way I do. Anyway.
I'm thinking back to the hairnets now.
I know, there's clearly a theme. And I will get back to the story I started off with, me starting mindfulness. But
diverting away.
No, you were just following.
Bookmark it.
That's it. You were following my tangent, and can I tell you that we're good at this? Tangent talking is our bag. So when I'm in a therapeutic space, if I'm the therapist and I'm working with a client, I bring mindfulness in as a thing we could add to what's going on right now, a way to help looking at ourselves in between sessions if we want to do that. Sort of structure that we can use to hang our hat on when it comes to, oh, there we go with the hats again. If we want to start being able to recognize what's going on for ourselves in between sessions so that they don't have, the client doesn't have to rely on me to make all the connections every time. The work is theirs. And if they practice in between sessions, then they could possibly see some stuff before they even come and see me next time. And then we can talk about that rather than trying to do all that in session. So it helps people make progress in between sessions. But there are people who turn up at therapy and go, mindfulness, bunch of hippie nonsense. And I'm not here to convert anyone. It's really not my place to do that. I could throw loads of statistics and papers and stuff at them, but that's fact and information. My place in a therapeutic relationship is not to win an argument. My place in a therapeutic relationship is to make space for someone in the way that they need it. So if it's appropriate, if someone seems amenable to it, I will bring mindfulness into it. Sometimes I'll sneak it in by the back door a little bit by going, here's this exercise. I'll call it an exercise. Here's an exercise we could do in the session if you want to. And we can see how that works while we're doing it in the session. And then I might do some breathing, and I might refer to it in kind of medical scientific terms to try and make it more comfortable. But really what I'm doing is age-old Buddhist practice that helps you center in your body. But you can't use those words with people who are just uncomfortable with that stuff, right?
Well, not even that. I'm sorry, I could very much jump on more tangents, but even about words, like we talk about faith or practices, and that can conjure up ideas in the mind when really we're just talking about being present and aware of what's going on for us in this moment.
Exactly.
And I can hear the overlap and the complements between the therapy hat and the mindfulness hat.
Exactly. Religions and these cultural traditions is what was there before science. People have been breathing since they had lungs. And just because somebody recognized 2,000 years ago that if you breathe out slower than you breathe in, you feel better, doesn't mean they were wrong. Just because they didn't happen to have a white coat at the time doesn't mean they were wrong, right? And now we've got the white coat situation going on, and we can try and work out how it works and what's the mechanism and all that sort of stuff. I'm speaking at 100 miles an hour. I'm clearly ADHDing. Doesn't mean the person from thousands of years ago is wrong or the person now is wrong. They're just both looking at the same thing from a different angle, that's all. In a therapeutic situation, I take into account what's appropriate for the therapeutic progress we're trying to make for that person. In the mindfulness setting, yes, I bring all my therapeutic information and experience and knowledge with me, but it's a different place because we're doing it in a group. So this isn't as intimate as it would be in an individual setting. We're there as a cohort. We're there to support each other, but not participant to participant, because that's risky. Not everyone has the same kind of self-awareness, and therefore may make the group feel unsafe if it's not participant to tutor. If it's participant to tutor, I get to have kind ways of inquiring on people's experience. We'll do a practice and I'll ask them about how it went, not was it good or bad. I'll ask, what did you experience? How was it in your body? What did you notice? And how are you now? And questions based on that in a safe way, because I have the training and the experience to do that. But if I loosed everyone on each other on day one, who knows what kind of discussions would be going on in judgment because we hadn't learned not to yet, and stuff like that's natural for us to automatically judge
ourselves and other people.
Yes.
Like you say, it's conducive to a safe place, just acknowledging our tendency to judge and what boundaries do we need in this group for it to be safe for everybody.
Exactly. So I bring elements of both disciplines to the other, but in an appropriate way. It's never both in the same measure. And that I can link it back to my story. See, we always come back if we remember.
If I remember last, we were lying on the floor, feeling uncomfortable, but you'd come back again. We were at the yoga class, and then we moved on to the meditation class, and then we bounced, but we're here again.
That's it. We went on a little journey on a side quest, but we're back on the main quest.
I love the phrasing. I will use that more often. We had a side quest.
Yes,
We've
we had
leveled up
to.
a bit.
Exactly. Now we're back. And so what I wanted to say about that group setting and making it safe was that is what helped me to be able to stay in what was uncomfortable in that first mindfulness class. Even though every session there was something that was uncomfortable, there was also acceptance and safety and managing interactions between participants and the tutor, and also between participants themselves in group settings, which allowed me enough space to feel safe to notice my own stuff instead of automatically sticking to the scripts that I had learned over decades for interaction between people, right? I think when people meet me, and this won't be any different, they assume that I am an extrovert. You wouldn't imagine anything else, would you?
We can appear socially competent. That doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that we are filled up by
Yes.
meeting people.
There is a limit to how often that is actually nurturing for me. It depends on the circumstances in which we are, whether that behavior nurtures me or whether I'm actually behaving in a sort of scripted way to try and make the situation be comfortable for myself and for other people. And it took a while for me to get to the point of being able to drop those scripts, because they had been very valuable to me. They had saved me from an awful lot of nonsense. But it allowed me to actually just be. Didn't have to appear like anything. I didn't have to impress anyone. I didn't have to hide anything that wasn't okay. I could just be. And it was that eventually led me to changing careers from working where I was to retraining to be a therapist, and also after that training to be a mindfulness tutor. That idea of I am fine as I am. I am 100% all I need to be in this moment. The reason I am who I am, how I am, and where I am has a lot to do with my past. But I didn't have a choice about an awful lot of that. And the choices I did make was based on what I had in the moment and what I had available to me. And usually, I would say most of the time, trying to do a good job of whatever was going on. It takes time to be able to look at past self like that. It takes time to be able to go, see that thing I've been cringing about for 20 years. That version of me was genuinely doing what they could in the moment with what they had. They couldn't have done any better with what they had in that moment. Current me would do it differently. That's because current me has gone through that and learned stuff. So actually that was a gift.
You say even in the moment it's hard to let go of those. For me, it's like a continual process of being aware of it and then going, oh, it's hard to let go of those masks, that the performance we might often do, the inner critic. It's hard to let go of that even in brief moments like practice. But then to extend that to our past as well and say, we weren't bad for what we've done. We were just doing what we could in that moment with what we had.
Yeah. And so I wanted to be able to bring that settledness, that okayness that is possible to meet in mindfulness. I wanted to bring that to other people, because this hamster wheel of trying to achieve and measure up and be good enough in whatever sphere we're in is exhausting, and it's actually shortening our lives. Because if we're constantly exposed to stress hormones, as we are when we're not being ourselves, those stress hormones have an effect on our body. Our stress hormones are only supposed to be there for a short time. They're for running away from a beast or fighting it. And these days, our beasts are maybe spreadsheets or,
our
TikTok.
beasts are working 9 till 5 and then haunting us afterwards. They're not coming in our caves to attack us.
Exactly. And so we're constantly having that fight or running away day and night, and we don't get a break from it. What's supposed to happen with stress hormones is you're supposed to go have a fright, and then automatically go into fight or flight, which means I'm running like hell, or I'm turning and facing this beast and fighting it. And in that process, we're processing those stress hormones that our adrenal glands have expressed. But there's a limited amount of that stuff, right? When it's finished, there's no more. The adrenal glands need a bit of time to make some more before we can do it again. Except in prehistoric times, when we were running away from saber-toothed tigers, we've either got away from the thing and had a moment to be able to breathe.
Breathers.
Yeah. therefore be able to settle into what's natural for us ourselves again, or the thing's eaten us, or we've slain it, right? Either way, in all of those scenarios, the stress ends. We've used up the stress hormones. Other hormones have a place to come and take over. Oxytocin can give us some rest and comfort in that moment. Maybe some dopamine can come back to make us do what we need to do in the moment again. But we don't have adrenaline or what's the other one?
Cortisol?
That's the one, thank you.
We don't have all these stresses that are there kind of making us feel like we need to fight, run away, hide, perform. That's all gone. There's normally parts to rest, but when you're working in finance and traveling and coming back to your child, etc., that rest time doesn't exist.
No,
so I hear that moment of bliss laying on the yoga mat being like, oh, this is what it feels like to not be stressed, to not be running away from something. I can hear why that would be contagious, and how you could find that in mindfulness.
Yeah. To start with, I think, I mean, you hear it in the practices, right? Mindfulness is not an escape. The time it blinking was.
Yeah.
And if I need an escape, I'm going to take it. If the only escape I have is 15 minutes of just sitting still or being in a place on my own, thank you, I'll have some of that. It's not a long-term escape, right? You can't do this for 10 years and expect to be able to move on or make change or, benefit yourself in any way other than just taking a break from the tough things that's going on. But we're allowed to take a break from the tough things that are going on. There's nothing wrong with that. Some people will say, oh, don't use it as an escape. But, over time, you will either get bored with just having that escape and change it to doing something else, or you will find new ways of adding to your mindfulness, which then becomes a bit more learning related and less just having a break and blissing out.
It's because I'm thinking of our cavemen. If we were running away from whatever, a lion or something, then having a break isn't right because we're going to get mowed down. If threats never go, then how can we give ourselves a break? Of course it doesn't make sense to, and telling people to have a break sounds mad. What? But if there's safety, if it's actually all right to take a break, then maybe we can do that, and maybe we can extend that, and it will go from just having a break to, maybe I can extend that self-awareness into other parts of my job, my life, my stresses, my family.
As soon as we give ourselves a break of any kind, we're giving ourselves, our bodies, an opportunity to get back to homeostasis, and we're giving our brains a minute to just let go of all that fighting or achieving. And we become a heck of a lot more creative than we are when we're in fight or flight. And so it's natural.
That, just how much silence and pausing can spur that creative brain. I agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's all right. So the more often we give ourselves a little break like that, the more often there's an opportunity for ourselves to find more creative ways about what would be better for ourselves. We don't have to force that. It comes naturally. If you give yourself enough space, creative stuff will fall in. And then you can start using those things to benefit yourself. We don't have to start off with our first mindfulness practice with an expectation that by next week I will have changed my whole life and I'll be a different person. It's not as quick as that. But by next week you will have had possibly up to five to seven opportunities to have a break that you didn't have last week.
So I'm conscious earlier you talked about when you were doing this meditation that you weren't aware of yourself as an ADHDer. You were just kind of questioning, why is it that this meditation is so hard? And thank you for telling me about what meditation, what mindfulness, more than meditation, what mindfulness has meant to you. But I guess I'm also interested in ADHD.
Yeah.
I asked at the beginning what mindfulness is, and you blew my kind of ideas, my preconceptions of it. But how did you discover that? How did you discover that you were an ADHDer, especially if you discovered later on in life?
Yeah, it's embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you. So when I started learning about mindfulness, I had no idea that I was an ADHD. I was still working as a contractor in finance. But as I was practicing mindfulness, I was asking myself harder and harder questions. It's not it's not a straightforward thing, right? You don't just go and have peace every time. Your brain
Mm-hmm.
starts coming up with clever questions to ask about your current situation and how you got there and whether it's really the right thing for you. And eventually my brain asked loud enough that I could hear, and it said, who are you benefiting by leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning and getting home at after 7 o'clock at night? Um, because it doesn't look like it's benefiting you. Um, that small kid at home certainly isn't benefiting, and the poor spouse is definitely not benefiting from this. Um, and it became clearer and clearer that really what I was doing was feeding capitalism.
Uh-huh.
And no, look, we all have to eat, right? And
Sure.
in the world we're in, we have to earn some money to be able to do that. That was a hard pill to swallow because the rules I had been given up until then were very clear. Get a good job, progress in that career, earn more money, be more senior, have a title if you can. I don't think I've really ever got to that, but at least, sound really busy.
That's the messages we observe.
Yeah. Oh,
Earlier, you described yourself as creativity coming from that quiet, and when you said that, I'm picturing I do art or performances or something, but actually, like in that space of mindfulness,
yeah.
you were questioning, what am I doing with my life? Like
Yeah.
that creativity came too, but the
Yeah.
chance to evaluate.
Yeah. Creativity isn't all swirly paint.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
yes.
And over time, I kept asking that question and asking myself to look out for opportunities, to look out for ways in how I might make that change. And eventually, I was just like, well, you can't make change unless you stop doing what you're doing right now. There's no time for other things. So you need to stop. And that was horrible. I discussed it with a mindfulness tutor who
Mm.
said, if you're going to go on an adventure, you can't do that without leaving the village. And I was like, yeah, but the village is paying my mortgage.
Yeah, I love the way that sounds. If you're going to go on
Mm,
an adventure, you can't do it without leading I can agree with that as a like
mm,
motivational poster. When you apply that to your own life, it's like,
mm.
oh
Yeah,
gosh, actually that's
yeah,
quite risky. The
yeah.
village is safe. I know the
The
village.
village is safe, but the village is actually killing me, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah, the corporate village.
And so I had to get over that hurdle. I had to recognize that I'm gonna have to take a leap. I'm gonna have to make a change. This is not sustainable. Carrying on like this will make me ill, will kill me earlier than I need to die. And there's a small person in the house, and there's a husband. I quite like these people, and it would be rather nice to spend some time with them. So eventually, I had to come to a conclusion that I had to set myself an ending. I had to start looking at a theme for the direction I want to go in instead of trying to do a specific thing because I couldn't come to an answer looking for specifics. The theme I rested on was people. Really benefit from spending nourishing time with people. And I needed to direct whatever I was going to do into that direction. And eventually, I landed on I'm going to train as a therapist because I had benefited a lot from therapy myself. I genuinely felt a kind of affinity for that relationship. Training as a therapist was really hard, and
I feel you.
yeah, it really wasn't easy. Because you get to learn bits about yourself that mindfulness ain't never going to show you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and he's a warning on therapy training about the self-awareness stuff. Like,
Oh my.
self-awareness isn't always pleasant.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to be fair, you're going to probably come across that in mindfulness as well, right? It's like you're shining a light into a dark room and go, oh, I've never seen that corner before. So I went through all of that and I became a therapist before I actually realized that I was an ADHDer. And the reason I realized was because during training, our child got diagnosed with autism.
Hmm.
And it makes, they make you, the parents fill in all these forms. And I kept going at that, going,
The assessments
that's
can
normal.
be thorough, and you start
Oh,
looking at all these
very
different traits,
detailed.
going, oh, that resonates.
Yeah, no, I just I don't know why they're wasting our time because all the stuff that I filled in here that looks like it scores highly is normal. And there was
I'm
discussions.
laughing with joy as you discuss it, like the feeling of being a late diagnosed
Yeah,
ADHDer, and this just feels normal. You've coped up up
yes,
until now with
everyone's
these
like this,
things.
right?
Sure, sure.
Except they're blinking not, they just didn't tell you. Um, And it took a while because, of course, it's a great big shock. Oh dear, my child has this label. What does that mean? And all the, future worry and, oh, what does it mean about me? Oh, all that stuff. And as the dust settled with that, I kept, I started finding ways to accommodate my child in ways that they needed that the world doesn't necessarily give them.
Yeah.
And as I was doing that, I was like, I could do that for myself. I could, when I need time away from my desk, I could give that to myself. And I started sort of incorporating stuff like that. And obviously, through my work, I'm always reading stuff about mental health, and being neurodivergent predisposes you to mental health difficulties because we're in a place that's difficult. We're in a world that isn't set up for us. So we're having to work double hard to try and keep up in the same place as other people just naturally are able to. And I started seeing a lot more of that because anytime I learned in training about depression or anxiety, I kept going, well, if you're in a tough place, are you sick? No, you're in a tough place. Of course, you're going to feel really awful. If that tough place becomes easier, you're not sick anymore, right? Because you're feeling better. So I started questioning this disorder of everything being added. If you're worried about something, have you got something to be worried about? Probably. Have you ever had something to be worried about? Maybe. It doesn't mean that worrying about stuff is wrong. It means that worrying about stuff might be interfering with other things in your life right now, and that's making it difficult. But that doesn't mean you're ill. That means you're using a way of looking after yourself that now has unintended consequences. Digress. I'm coming back to the point.
And I feel I could literally feel shudders actually as you were talking earlier about you were just talking about those like little adaptations, like, oh, I can do this to myself. I could literally feel shudders coming over me. And then you extended it to talking about train in therapy and counselling. You equip other people to be able to begin to love themselves, to begin to make those little adaptations, to make their life reasonable. And it doesn't have to be difficult, or at least not as difficult as it is. And then discovering that and applying to yourself.
So lovely, right? And it's as I was trying to understand the niche I wanted to work in as a therapist, that the questions you ask yourself when you're doing that is, who are the people that I resonate with the most? Who are the people with whom sessions seem to fly by and they're benefiting quicker than other people from how I am, so that I can offer the people who will benefit from my way of being a way to recognize me, a way to find me, instead of saying I'll work with everyone, which means like 80% of people will turn up and go, not for me, but they won't know that until they've been working with you for a bit, and then that's not great for either party. And the more I looked at the people that really did well with me, that really seemed to connect, that I really seemed to connect with in therapy as well, they were all ADHDers.
Again, at this point, you don't know yourself as an ADHD. You just know that you really connect with them, and it doesn't quite make sense, but it is.
Yeah, this was a fact, right? And this is data I managed to acquire as I went along. And I was like, okay. And I did once go to a talk about autism with autistic speakers, and I felt a real pain in my heart when the speaker said they were talking about a child and their mother coming to speak to them after a talk, and the mother said something like, I always knew there was something wrong with her.
I closed my eyes when you said that.
Yes.
Oh, I always knew there was something about her, that something wrong with her.
Yeah.
Oh.
So the speaker got to their knees to be at eye height for the child and said, there is nothing wrong with you. You are perfect as you are. You are the way you're supposed to be. And that, in that talk, goosebumps now, and that was years ago. In that talk, I was sitting there with such pain in my heart. I started crying in the audience. I was like, why am I crying? I'm not autistic. This is about autistic people. Stop it. It's not about you. And I went to go and talk to the speakers afterwards and said, look, I don't know why I had such an emotional response to this, but that really hit me. And they said, have you ever considered yourself to be neurodivergent? And I went, no. Took myself off home giggling at the thought. And it wasn't until a long time after that experience, my child's recognition as neurodivergent, my work coming together, all conspired to make me go on, girl, have a look at yourself. Make sure you check all the boxes for if you were to speak to someone else and try to work out if they were an ADHD or as a clinician. I mean, obviously I can't diagnose, but if I was trying to understand someone's point of view to see if maybe neurodivergence had something to do with the way they looked at the world, if you do that for yourself, how do you come out? And it was very obvious. People's families know, right? I said to my husband, I'm considering this. I'm exploring it. I'm seeing if maybe this is a fit. And he went, of course it's a fit.
Expecting him to go, ooh, I don't know about that, Leizl.
I was about to have to defend myself, but no. That was beautiful for me because I was able to let go of a whole load of expectations of myself, going, hey, so of course you can't do a story beginning to end sequentially as other people do. There's good reason for that. Of course you're going to forget stuff.
They're great.
Yeah, exactly.
But it makes sense, and my real interest is blaming ourselves, and it makes sense, and we stop kind of beating ourselves up and go, I'm not defective for side questing, for struggling with focus, for whatever it might be. It's just it's part of my beautiful mind.
Exactly. And I started spending more and more time with other ADHDers because of this, and found community, found acceptance, found comfort, found belonging, not just fitting in. And that was the thing that really gave me permission to go, come on, just be you. That really, really released me from an awful, awful lot of tension. Helped me to make decisions that were right for me, without having to second guess myself because it's not the rule that the world has given me. That is what I would love to pass on to people, whether it is through therapy or through mindfulness. We need to give ourselves permission to just be as we are because we're damn good as we are.
I feel that not just of your words. I can almost feel something shift in me, like a calmness. I wasn't rocking as much after you said that. I can feel that.
Yeah,
that
it does.
Release, that power, the potency of just being ourselves. It almost sounds cliche, but gosh, is it transformative?
Yeah, it's a big, and not only is it transformative, it's also not new. If we look at all the different types of people in the world and how we need different types of people in the world to do different things, right? There are people who are very analytical. I'm not one of them. There are people who are very analytical and driven by detail. I love them. They can do stuff I can't do, right? I think they're the greatest things in sliced bread. Let's say stereotypically, those people may not connect socially quite so easily. I'm there for you for that. I can do that, right? So I can complement their needs and their abilities, and they can do the same for me. And if we look at a whole society, our whole society is set up like that. There are people who have abilities and interests that complement the rest and actually help our society to grow and progress. And that's been there since we were in caves. We just used to call it so-and-so that enjoys doing that and rocks about a bit when they do it. All right, great. Now we give it names and disorders and try and medicate it.
I was chatting to a chap the other day, this isn't confidential, ADHDer, and he said something, I'm going to paraphrase terribly, but he said something to me like, I am not disordered, I'm a hunter. I'm a hunter in a group of farmers. It's not that I am distracted, I'm vigilant, I'm looking out for prey. When I'm hyper-focused, I'm following that deer to catch it. I'm not defective, I'm not wrong. I've just got a different job to everyone else. I'm not a farmer. I'm not sat there waiting for the crops to grow. I'm out there hunting. That's me. And I loved it. It just seemed so affirming, changing that language slightly from disordered or different to no, we're just another piece in the puzzle. A piece that's a different color, maybe a different section, but that doesn't make that piece not part of a puzzle. And when it's blended together, just how beautiful is that?
Sure. Humans, we are all one, and we need each other to be as different as we are. the social model of neurodivergence is a really important thing to bring into the way we look at ourselves. I did say a minute ago, we try and medicate it. It's important to recognize that if people medicate ADHD, that is a very personal choice. And in many cases, people really benefit from it. So it's not like there's anything wrong with doing that. I'm just saying we also need to be aware that if we're not going to call it a disorder, maybe we don't want to be medicating it either. So now I am coming up to my next mindfulness course this year, and that's going to be starting on the 11th of September. It's an 8-week course.
Love to know more about that. So you're starting this course.
So it's I do it twice a year. I do it. I've been doing it in February, but I think I might be changing that to January, and then I do another one in September. It's an 8-week course. I do it for people who are specifically ADHDers, and obviously there's quite an overlap with autism, so there's a lot of ADHDers out there as well. It would be exclusionary of me to say only ADHDers, and not appropriate because there's an awful lot of shared traits. So ADHDers and ADHDers turning up for the 8 weeks. We do it online, which means you get to do it in your gym jams if you want.
Wonderful.
It means you don't have to leave the house, don't need to find parking, you don't have to try and work out where I am.
And we can do the toe curling without seeing each other's toes.
Toe curling without anyone seeing your toes if you want. Come together for 2 hours each time. Now, 2 hours to an ADHDer might sound like an eternity, but the joy of knowing what we need is that I break that up several times. There is a variety of some education, some practice, and some interaction between each other. And there's choice in all of it. You don't have to have your camera on if you don't want to. You don't have to interact with other participants if you don't want to. If I ask a question, you also have pure permission to say no. I don't want to talk about that. Not even responding, that too is okay. I'm not going to be upset. The point is that we get to be our whole selves. And by the time that we feel safe, maybe we would like to interact and get used to speaking to each other, but we don't have to from the beginning. So 8 weeks from the beginning, 2 hours a week. At the end of the course, we also have a single day's practice, usually about 6 weeks after the event, maybe a month to 6 weeks after the event, where we all come together and sort of discuss how it's been since we ended the course, how our lives have been affected by what we've done, and share that in the group that we've been making our progress with.
Did you say it started in September? I'd love to. I'll probably edit it and stick a link up on the top or something. But how can people find out more about you, Leizl, more about Rewire Therapy? How can they find out more about you?
They can go to the website. So that's all the W's, rewiretherapy.co.uk. They can find me on Facebook, it's just Rewire Therapy, and also on Instagram. I am on Instagram. I don't know what I'm doing when I'm there, but I am there. And also on LinkedIn. And all of these platforms, I am letting people know that we're having a little practice, a little defrazzle session for ADHDers coming up on the 21st of May at 1 o'clock and online. And you can book your free space on that on Eventbrite. I said it's free, so you don't have to spend any money, but I do need to know if you're coming. If you book yourself on there. Also, you could sign up for the newsletter, which gives you dates of the course, gives you some free resources. There's a freebie that came out last year that's already on that newsletter that you can use right now, but there's a new one coming out that I'm not going to be giving you too much detail away from just now, but there's another free resource going to be added on to that you can get if you sign up to the newsletter. And if you don't want to be on the newsletter, that's okay. You can have the freebies and then just stop the subscription to the newsletter. I'm not going to be upset about that. Don't want to be sending you emails if you don't want them. Yeah, so there's all those ways. You can find me on the socials. You can get the newsletter. You can turn up at the free tryout. And I'd love to talk to you about mindfulness. As you can tell, I quite enjoy it.
For me, this has been very easy to talk to you about mindfulness. The time has gone pretty darn quick, and 2 hours, like you say, can sound like a long time when you budget it out, like 2 hours, when will we get a wee break? But actually, like, when you're in it, the time goes quickly. I can imagine the course or that taster session, or a session just meeting individually with you to talk about but mindfulness for ADHD. I can imagine that feeling compassionate, gentle, easy, and maybe even that funness we described when we chatted about mindfulness at the beginning.
Yeah, there's enough pain in life, right? We don't have to do it.
Aware of time. I have someone in a little bit, but genuinely thank you for coming on. It's been brilliant to speak with you both today and when we spoke before. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you, Simon. Thank you very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed having the conversation, and I'd love to come back anytime you want to talk about mindfulness or ADHD. I'm here.